I just finished my lunch and I thought, let me make a video for you because whenever I have time, I'll be investing in you. That's why I'm on YouTube. I'm not on YouTube for fame, nor for money, nor for anything else, but to feed Christ's lambs, which is you. So, in this video, I want you to think with me, okay? When someone lies to you, and what is a lie? What is lying? Lying is when you violate safety to get an advantage from someone or from a situation. So someone wants an advantage out of a situation. This advantage cannot be justified, so they violate safety by either withholding information or by using actual information to mislead people in a direction that violates their safety. That's what lying is. If you have people who are criminals come to you asking where your friend lives, of course you're not going to give the address. But if they are the type of people that will keep on pushing and they're violent, you may give them an address where your friend doesn't live. Did you lie now? No. You just acted in a practical way. You used misinformation to get yourself out of danger, and after they leave, now you report them. Now you also report your friend. There are people asking for your address. I gave them a false one. So lying is not giving misinformation for safety reasons or because it's necessary. Lying is when you violate safety, because when you violate trust where it's safe, that's lying, and you need to understand that. So when someone is lying to you, where they are withholding information and therefore they're misleading you, or they're giving factual information but in a wrong context, or they just give flat out misinformation. When someone lies to you, it's not your fault. They're the ones lying, okay? They will try to blame you by saying, well, you're just so dumb that you didn't see through me. No, they shouldn't lie. I mean, if you have a small kid and the kid is sexually molested, I'm going to say, well, the child shouldn't be so vulnerable. No. The adult shouldn't put his, well, you know what I'm about to say, in the kid. You get what I'm saying? So when someone lies to you, it's not your fault. If someone lies all the time because they're a pathological liar, sooner or later you realize, okay, but this individual is making contradictory statements all the time. So you become a conflict around this individual because the statements they make contradict each other all the time. So eventually you'll be fed up listening to that individual. You just avoid the individual because you think, come on, what's going on, man? You say one thing, then you say something else, then 30 minutes later you say another thing, and you contradict it later again. Sometimes you contradict yourself twice in the same conversation. Dude, you need help. What if, however, you're dealing with someone that's lying way too much? You have a pathological liar who just has to lie because they're addicted to lying. That exists. That's a mental disorder. But then you have people who lie too much. They may appear the same, a pathological liar and someone that lies too much, but it's not. A pathological liar is just someone who's addicted to lying. They're addicted to having an advantage over others that they shouldn't have. Someone that lies too much is someone that's so confident in their lying, they don't realize they're doing it way too much. Someone that lies too much only lies too much because he or she, because there are also females doing it, but I'm going to use the pronoun he now, he does this because he knows that he has a firm grip on the one he's lying to. And this grip is that the individual he's lying to is familiar with being lied to. And when you've become familiar with being lied to, you over time develop a comfort around being lied to. Does that mean that you appreciate being lied to? No. But because you've become familiar to it, it feels comfortable. It feels like you're at home. It feels as if it's known territory. And that is the purpose of those that use trauma rituals on the population. They want us, the population, to become familiar with being lied to. Because once we are familiar with being lied to, they now can lie to 24/7. They can make things up out of thin air and we just will not notice it. That's how fake news operates. The reason why you have fake news is to condition the masses to be comfortable being lied to. Because once you're comfortable being lied to, you will not notice quickly when someone is lying to you. And because you're comfortable being lied to, you now become uncomfortable when someone points out a lie. That's how it goes. When you're comfortable being lied to, when you become familiar with being lied to, that's the same as being familiar with being victimized. So when you're being victimized by a lie, because lying is breaching safety, now if someone points out to you, Suzanne, or Martha, or Leon, or whatever female name you may have if you're a female, someone may tell you, Jessica, what Emma told you, think about it. Her story contradicts itself. And then Jessica listens to you, and after a while, Jessica realizes, hold on a minute, she is telling the truth. What Emma said doesn't add up. But now, because Jessica has become familiar, or you can say comfortable being lied to, so she's comfortable with being victimized. She doesn't appreciate it, she doesn't approve it, she doesn't like it, but she's become comfortable with it, though familiarity. So because she's become comfortable with being victimized, she now feels threatened after Rashid pointed out to her that Emma, who so-called her best friend, lied to her. Because now Jessica needs to realize that Emma, her so-called best friend, wants to take advantage of her. And it's an advantage Emma cannot be open about because an advantage just shouldn't exist. So now Jessica, to avoid cognitive dissonance, may avoid Rashid because she is comfortable with being victimized. Not physical victimization, because then obviously you realize you're being victimized, but victimized through deception. You have pathological liars. Those are people who recognize quickly that they're out of their mind. And then you have people that lie too much because they're so confident in their scam art that they're doing. I'm called a scam card because they're scam artists, that they do it so often. And the reason they get away with it is because the people they conduct it on are comfortable being victimized through deception. Okay, one question to you. How often do you have presidential elections in the United States? Every 4 years, right? Now, this is common in most republics. In some republics, it's each 6 years. But anyway, you have a cycle of 4 or 6 years in which there are presidential elections. A generation takes around 25 years, okay? So within 25 years, or if you say a generation is 20 years, some people say a generation is 20 years. So if a generation is 20 years, you have 5 presidential elections take place within that generation. So the people that grow up in that generation, well, the first presidential election, they may not be aware of it because it's just 4 years old. The second one, they may be aware that there is a leader called the president. So from those 5 elections, they experience 4. With the first one they experience, they're 8 years old. The second one, they're 16. Then it goes on. 8, 16. Well, actually 8. Then you have 12, 16, depending on the type of cycle of the country in. Whether it's a 6-year cycle or 4-year cycle, but they experience multiple presidential elections. That generation has enough time to reflect and realize, hold on a minute, we are being scammed. When I was 10 years old, we had a presidential campaign going on where a candidate promised this and that, and the counterparty offered this and that, and yet another party, because outside the United States you have a multi-party system, another party promised that. Okay, I was 10 now I'm 25. There has been at least 3 presidential elections in between. Now that I look back, the same promises were made, but nothing was done. Problems are only shifted around in the community. So people from that generation should realize, hold on a minute, we're being scammed. But if it's so that people are being scammed in those presidential elections, why do they keep voting? I'm using the example of presidential elections now because it's an obvious one. It's not something you need to think deeply about because most countries today are republics. The blue bloods have forfeited their thrones on many countries, so they allow the Freemasonic Lodge to control the republics. But okay, why do people keep voting if they know that they're being scammed? That's the same as someone that's lying too much. A pathological liar, you're over that individual very quickly. Someone that lies too much only continues to do it because he or she has a grip on the population. That grip is that people are accustomed to being lied to. Why do people keep voting if they know they're being scammed? Here's the deal. They have invested a lot in those categories: Republican, Democrat, Green, right wing, left wing, conservative, Democrat, you name it. You have all those labels, and they've invested a lot in those labels. They've got ties with relatives or with friends just to be part of a group. They went into debates. They altered their lifestyle to reflect the ideals their group stands for. So they've invested a lot in those labels. And all of those people experience troubles in the community. But where do those troubles come from? From the community itself. So people should realize that it's them that need to change on the inside. But people are avoiding this. That's why they look for hero figures or look for heroes to do the job for them. Which will never work because it's the population that has the internal issues that need to resolve. External figures that we call politicians can't do that. They can only enforce policies on the population to redirect the manifestation of the problems. That's what they can do. They can build more prisons, put more people in jail. Then you may say, you see, the policy of the Republicans worked. There's less crime on the street. Not true. More people are in jail. But now you have other people who are traumatized because their fathers or brothers or others are in jail. And now those people that are traumatized will later escalate. So you have a relief that happens in the community, and later more violence will come. So you may have a Republican candidate that comes with a zero tolerance policy. Now you have more people in jail. And for the next 3 to 4 years, there's more ease in the community. And then suddenly, the violence comes back. And then there's another presidential election. And now the Democrats will say, we're going to deal with this. And it goes on and on like this. So, in this case, people don't want to self-reflect. They want to identify with a group, and through the group, they hope to achieve change. Now, groups can bring change for the better. That's possible. That's not a hoax. That happens. It happened throughout history. But any long-term change begins on the inside. But that's where people don't want to look, because then they need to acknowledge things of other people also that they don't want to admit, especially about their parents, their other relatives, their friends, their significant others. So they invest in these labels. And anytime they empower one of these labels, they're giving consent to being lied to. Because eventually, the machine that's called the system cannot deliver what is being promised. So, if they have to admit that they're being scammed, then they also need to acknowledge that they complied with the scam. And that's a traumatic thing for them to recognize. And because they're so invested in those labels, they're comfortable with the context of those labels, which is the scam. So, to acknowledge that it's a scam will undo or nullify all their investments. And this is something that a lot of people don't want to experience. And some people that experience this lose it and they escalate and attack others. So we don't want that to happen. So there you have another grip. We don't want people to escalate because they have nothing left to lose. So we want people to feel connected in the community. That's why we tolerate cults. Because in a cult, someone can function well because their primary need for human connection is being met. In the wrong way, but it's being met. So if all these cults, religious, political cults, social cults, all these cults, and they all want change on their terms, but they never question their terms. And it's the fact that they don't question their terms that makes the group so powerful. So the unities of those groups depend on the fact that they don't reflect on themselves. And because they don't reflect on themselves, they can't comply with long-term solutions. So anytime there's an election, they're actually consenting with being deceived. Now, you can vote out of solidarity to show others, I'm part of this community, that's why I vote. That's a symbolic gesture. As long as you know that it's only a symbolic gesture, that's fine. But the moment you invest your expectation in that vote, you are consenting with being lied to. Because when you look at the context, you realize this cannot work. This needs to be gained internally. So how can you have people who don't want to self-reflect? Most of them don't even have any stable self-worth. Their self-worth comes from the cult they're a part of. And those cults only remain strong and functional because they don't reflect on themselves. So it's denial that keeps the ease in the community going. But this denial also causes problems, and now people want the problems to be resolved. But the problems are there because of denial, because people don't want to self-reflect. So how can people continue in denial and appoint leaders in this denial and expect that the problems that's caused by that same denial will be resolved? So they are in denial. They don't want to admit this. So in this denial, they appoint leaders. And the leaders they appoint in this denial ought to resolve the problems that they caused by that same denial. So those leaders can only function as leaders because they are in denial. So their denial both energizes the problems as well as the ones that's supposed to resolve those problems. How can this ever work out? It can't. But that's where you see that a lot of folks are they're not happy with it, but they're comfortable with being lied to because it's familiar to them. That's why you have those scam artists that lie too much because they know they can get away with it. So why am I teaching you this? It's for you to understand what's going on around you. When you have someone that's lying, this individual tries to get an undue advantage at others' expense. When you're dealing with a pathological liar, it's someone who lost their mind. And such an individual will crash sooner or later. When you're dealing with someone that lies too much, there's an individual that's being empowered and enabled by the community to continue their lying because the community is invested in the lie. So don't look at the one that lies too much. Look at the people he or she is lying to. Why can't those people realize that they're being lied to? Because they're comfortable with being lied to. So for those people that lie too much to be stopped, the population must forfeit the denial they're in. Because it's the denial that enables those scam artists to lie too much. So understand that if someone lies to you, it's not your fault. They're the ones lying. If someone's a pathological liar, man, you'll be over that individual very quickly. If someone lies too much, self-reflect and see whether there's some investment you have that enables their lying. Remember, you cannot bring forth Christ-centered results or Christ-centered fruit while running a satanic program in your mind. You must be in agreement with Christ. Well, that's it for now. Keep agreeing with Christ and be at peace.